What is up, down, and sideways, you truly beautiful individuals? It's another epi of League Unlock. My name is Eric, flying Han Solo on today's epi, and let's all just take a deep breath, because that was an absolute flurry, insane amount of games over the weekend. And if you look at before the weekend happened, the landscape has shifted monumentally about how you feel about a lot of the teams at the tippity top from their respective regions, because obviously we had playoff pushes, multiple series for multiple teams, and a couple of finals. So yes, some seismic shifts across the board, and maybe the least surprising shift is how the LCK ended up playing out. Now, it starts with Gen G 3-0 in D plus Kia. I think that was quite a shift, unexpected. You saw a major level up from Gen G, which made you think heading into a finals clash against Hanwha Life, things were maybe taking a turn over in the LCK. But still, from the first game, it felt like Hanwha Life was in control. When you have a 0-6 Chovy on an Ambessa mid, you have the level that Peanut was playing on his Sejuani, and Hanwha Life fully felt like the better team in this series. Really, the story of it for me especially was the crazy lane swaps and some of the picks that we were seeing. Of course, you had the Viego mid for Chovy, and then you've got solo lanes 2v2ing in the mid lane, TPing across to go get a single wave under turret. It really felt a little bit crazy, especially in the LCK, much more so than any of the other major regions this weekend. But messy stuff, and really make you not want to see lane swaps anymore when you have world-class players like Zeus and Keen playing these horrible, starved top laners. And then you get into the Game 5, which is the slowest paced game that I've seen in several years for sure. We're talking a single kill that happened at like level 2 at 28 minutes. That's how slow it was, and Keen was so far behind on this Ornn, he was completely useless for the majority of the game, but he didn't even feel like the most useless champion on his team. That honor, unfortunately, goes to the Trundle for Canyon in that Game 5, and I mean, the Zeus Gwen didn't even need to snowball or get ahead. Again, this Ornn was just put so unbelievably far behind that he could never really do anything. There was too much pressure on this Jinx Lulu to kind of carry and take over the game, and it was really Viper who was the one ahead as that AD carry. But yeah, Keen, Canyon, and Duro obviously on a Lulu, but they did like 13,000 damage combined between them, and that's just, you're not getting enough from that supporting cast. So Game 5, even though it took 40 minutes, there was 9 kills total in a 40-minute game. When we get to some of these other games that were 40 minutes and had like 50 plus kills, usually the LCK finals absolutely live up to the hype and have some banger matchups. This series felt a little slow, and I would say a little uninteresting. You had, like, they were just kind of complete snowballs. I mean, you have the Vayne game out of Keen where he was useless from level 1. He ends up going 1-7, and you have these crazy lane swaps, a kind of dull, slow-paced Game 5. It was a bit of a bizarre series for not all of the best ways, but especially because of how good Gen G looked against D plus Kia in the series before. I was expecting an absolute banger, and I know we got 5 games of Fearless. Really, the Aurelion Sol was the only kind of spicy pick. I guess the Gwen for Zeus in that 5th game. But for the most part, Hanwha Life proving they are a clear cut above the rest of the LCK. And obviously winning that finals clinches their spot as the LCK and home team representative for the first stand, the first international tournament of the year. Very excited to see this Hanwha squad. Zeus picked up MVP for this series. Obviously feeling real good in this new lineup. I think Zeus clearly the best top laner in the LCK, as we would have expected. Viper's the best AD carry. Peanut's playing like the best jungler. So yes, you should be feeling pretty darn good if you are a fan of Hanwha Life, because they absolutely, I'm not going to say decimated this finals. Again, it went to game 5. Gen G was able to pick up a couple of wins, but for the most part, pretty clearly the better team going the way of Hanwha Life. The LTA finals, maybe the games were more competitive, but at least we were guaranteed a game 5 in Hanwha Life. It was, I mean, the semifinals were the bigger surprise. I think 100 Thieves versus Team Liquid matching up in the finals was the least expected result, probably, for how things could have played out in the LTA, and very different paths as to how these squads got here. And I mean, 100 Thieves absolutely probably should have picked up at least one of these games, especially probably looking towards that second game that they definitely had an angle to get in. But let's be honest, this was a Yawn highlight reel across especially games 2 and 5. The single play of buying a stopwatch and completely nullifying the main engage of this Orianna Nocturne combo out of River and Quid. Completely destroy. One press of a button completely negates their entire team comp. That's kind of one of the game-changing moments to clean the fight around for him. And then in the game 3, which, again, there were also angles. 100 Thieves were in control for at least the first half to first part of the mid game in this third match. But yeah, some clean team fighting out of Jan's Kaisa, and this guy has had he's been the best player in the LTA when you're probably looking at the full body of work now with this entire event behind us. But it does end up being Team Liquid going 3-0. Yes, they were 100% the better team. I know 100 Thieves, you would have been terrified of them matching up internationally, and I'm even still a little hesitant, a little worried about Team Liquid, because it really did feel like at least 2 of these games, and you can even go back to their series beforehand, that they were relying on Yawn popping off perhaps a little bit too much. This Fearless Draft era, we're seeing APA pulling out the 6. I know Aurelion Sol's been a side pick for him. Nobody's playing Nico mid in 2025. It feels like his champion pool is the exact same as 2024. And I know you heard Umpty kind of saying, okay, maybe Blabber, maybe River, maybe Inspired were at a higher level than me. But guess what? I'm the one with the trophy. And 100%, speak your truth, Umpty. That's a fact. You got the trophy for first stand, but still a little bit worried, again, about him matching up internationally. And obviously the big talk after all this tournament wrapping up is not actually the games per se. It's more so a bit of a abysmal format. The fact that we had the entire split in the LTA and not even a game 4. We didn't even get a game 4 of this Fearless Draft, which is an absolute disaster when you're looking at the LCK and LPL, the 2 premier regions that everybody else is trying to catch up to, are playing best of 5s across the board. I know people were saying Team Liquid 17 games total en route to a victory, a title, and Hanwha Life played 4 game 5s in their playoff bracket alone. So it's a completely ridiculous format, especially in this Fearless Draft. And where is the losers bracket? Imagine we had the storyline of a Cloud9 FlyQuest elimination matchup in the losers bracket, and even going back to those semifinals. Both FlyQuest and Cloud9, you feel like if this goes to 5 games, or if this is a best of 5, there's an angle that both of those teams are still in this tournament. You feel like losing in game 3s like the both of them did. It felt like the series were just warming up. You had to at least have semifinals be best of 5 if you're not going to have a loser's bracket, or if you are going to have a loser's bracket, then, well, they can be best of 3s, but at least have that bracket. And, I mean, case in point, you never had an opportunity for storylines to really even develop. It felt like this season was still just warming up, and now the tournament's over, and there's a reason, or that's one of the main reasons why it had some of the lowest viewership that we've seen in the inaugural split. Despite having this new League of America's full revamp, people just weren't buying in. The hype wasn't there. The storylines were not developed, and there's so many opportunities for there to be storylines, which is what makes this even more sad, even more difficult of a pill to swallow. But obviously, Riot, take notes from this, how to improve it. There's a lot of ways that you can improve it, but it is now Team Liquid going to represent, and will have so much less practice on Fearless. I'm terrified of APA's champion pool. I'm terrified that if Yon has a bad game, Team Liquid have absolutely no chance in winning. So don't have a ton of confidence in them representing as the LTA squad. And again, with this format, would have been hard-pressed to have confidence in whichever team ends up representing internationally for North America and South America. Speaking of all those other best of fives, the LPL was absolute full steam ahead, back-to-back best of fives every day, even going into the Monday. So we've already got multiple teams we're saying 0-7-2 saluting their seasons on the Rift. And obviously BLG began their incredible, or expected incredible, losers bracket run. No top seed for them, no luxury of having a loss that they can have to go down to losers. And as we saw at Worlds last year, that is often where BLG thrives. Fresh off of already eliminating BLG, Weibo, despite a rough series from Wei. Xiaohu was a non-factor. They go into Thunder Talk. They drop game one, and we're shaking in our boots. They already lost to Thunder Talk to close out the first round. Maybe we should start sweating. And then they proceed to go 23 kills to 0 in game two. And if you want to expand that even further, the next 3 straight games, which, yes, BLG proceed to win in increasingly convincing fashion, 79 kills to 16 in what I'm dubbing the most lopsided 3 straight games that you will ever see. I mean, Knight goes Elk goes 13-0 and 14 on Jin. In game 3, you have Bin Jax is popping off. You're showing off the superior team fighting of BLG, and then it all fully came crumbling down in that game 4, where Knight gets a triple kill on Lucian mid, at level 1. So immediately into the game gets completely out of hand and snowballs from there. Knight, you know, when he's laughing while he's playing, things are a disaster for the opposing team. But the rest of the LPL definitely got a cold shiver down their spine, seeing the level that BLG was at. And say what you will about Thunder Talk, you know, they swiftly got bumped down to losers from JDG before getting knocked into the stratosphere by BLG. But this was definitely an awakening, a sleeping giant coming out, and obviously now the big favorites in the LPL, as they already were. But we wanted to see, okay, was that just they needed a swift kick up the backside, losing to Thunder Talk? That's exactly what they needed. And yeah, I'm terrified to be matching up against BLG, even if Wei continues to not be playing at the highest level. The solo lanes and the bot lane are playing so well that I'm still terrified of that prospect. Fresh off of an MVP in a ridiculous 3 series, DoinB and the boys, they lost to Anyone's Legend on that top side. They're bumped in against top eSports, and despite Leave having some absolutely insane individual performances, first on the Kai'Sa and then doing his best to carry the squad to a victory in game 2 on the Jhin. My man had a couple of incredible back-to-back games, but this entire series was a jungle Canyon, and Canyon wasn't even in the game. We know Kanavi routinely picks up MVPs himself in the LPL, and he is very much in that MVP form. Really felt like 369 also woke up from a stupor in this series to start playing at a high level, especially on the Gnar and then at the Camille in game 4. But the team fighting was definitely just at another level from top esports throughout, and the Yasuo Gragas combo in game 4. God bless you, DoinB. It's been a treat to see you back. It's been a treat to see you breathe some life into this NIP lineup. But the one-man Yasuo ultis on the Jax, on the Camille, they weren't it in this game 4. They never got this wombo combo or even synergy between those two mid-jungle to work out, or mid-top, and yeah, the Yasuo wasn't it. Leave couldn't really get anything cooking on the Zeri, even with the Yumi out of PP God. But This was a lesser degree to what we got from BLG. Definitely felt like a level up from Top eSports. The first 3 series that we saw them on the Rift throughout Split 1 or Round 1 in the LPL, we were waiting for them to be that clear number 2 team in the LPL. I'm not sure if I'm ready to immediately slot them into that category, but this was absolutely them taking a step towards that and showcasing that, yes, they can be the second best team in the LPL, and obviously they'll get a pretty damn good opportunity when they match up against BLG in the very next round. Obviously, we still have JDG and Anyone's Legend chilling in that winner's bracket or winner's final to see who ultimately goes to that main final. But yeah, top 4 look pretty scarifying. Scarifying. I like that, kind of combining terrifying and scary. We're going to patent that one. But they both, or all 4 teams, look like a tough matchup. AL's probably the biggest underdog still, just because they have, I feel like, the most to prove out of those 4, but any one of them are going to be a terrifying matchup. But BLG going to be huge favorites against anybody. The only angle maybe you're seeing now with Top eSports is Kanavi dismantling Wei, because as we mentioned, Wei has not looked good even in some of these wins for BLG, and Kanavi has looked like the best player on Top eSports and maybe the best jungler in the LPL. So that matchup alone is enough to cause maybe some concern on the side of BLG, but the rest of the guys are firing at such levels that you probably don't need to be too concerned. But either way, the bangers just keep on rolling through over in the LPL. Maybe the EU version of a banger, of course, would be called the Fiesta, and that is just what Fnatic is bred in, what it's been grown in, and where it thrives, because they probably had no business winning this series against BDS. And I will say, even, the one win that BDS did get in the series was far and away the most dominant game of the series. It was a scrappy game 1, and to get back into game 3, you kind of needed an all-time throw from BDS. But we will give credit to Fnatic. They played this one team fight incredibly well, because Ice is all the money. He's so incredibly fed on the Jinx for BDS, and you have the instant play of Oscar knocking the Braum away so that he can't peel for Ice, and then Mickey on the Leona. Razork hops in on the Pantheon to immediately blow up Ice. That was clean, cool, and collected from Fnatic when they are very much backs against the wall, down 6k plus, knocking on their base RBDS, and that's how they eventually get back into the game, because Upset gets fed on the Jhin. And as much of a meme Jhin is when there's no tanks, and when you do get to the late game and his AD gets to 500, he can do some insane damage, and Upset is able to come online to close that one out. But not feeling super confident from Fnatic after this one. It's more a BDS loss than a Fnatic win, because as people were memeing, Fnatic lost the series 0-3, but somehow they win the series because BDS looked like the better team in game 1. We're definitively the better team in game 2, and we're in the driver's seat for 90% of game 3. But nonetheless, it is Fnatic coming away with the series victory to keep their hope and faith alive to still be the team representing at first stand, or at the very least get a rematch with G2 before they ultimately get pumped in those finals, wherever that ends up being. But for now, they stay alive. It could not have been more different for their future opponent in Movistar Koi, who definitely had the easier opponent as the collapse of GiantX continues. Remember a couple of weeks ago, this team was near the top of the LEC power rankings and were looking like the team to beat? That lasted for about a single week. Movistar completely dismantled them, and the Elyoya Jojo synergy is completely on point. Jackie's had a rough series, and Elyoya, one of the few Western Nidalees who actually makes that pick work. He completely took over the early game, got, I think, the first 4 kills for Movistar Koi, but yeah, him and Jojo, especially in this second game, the synergy's on point. Jojo was 3 levels higher than Jackie's throughout this game. And the Azir is obviously a comfort pick fallback for JoJo, kind of like the Lee Sin equivalent of mid lane, where every jungler needs to have Lee Sin mechanics. Everyone needs to be able to shuffle well on the Azir, which is why somebody like APA constantly gets flack for not necessarily having those Azir mechanics. But now you look at Movistar matching up against Fnatic, and I mean, on paper, the last couple of weeks, how it's gone, Movistar is so polarizing because they get completely smashed, beat into the dirt by Carmine Corp, and then do the exact same thing to GiantX. And that's kind of how their whole season has been. They're smashing opposition or getting absolutely beat down. And Fnatic, I mean, how do you even know what to think? Somehow they win these games that they have absolutely no business winning. They thrive in the chaos and the messiness that is the ditch of European League of Legends right now. So mainly we'll see if Movistar Koi can survive in that ugly chaos that Fnatic has brought to the entire region. But either way, that's going to be a fiesta of a series or a banger of a series, depending if you're on the copium heavy side of things for the LEC. We obviously still have the Carmine Corp G2 matchup, which will be airing or happening, shortly after we finish this show, and we'll break down how that one plays out with Movistar Koi and Fnatic. The winner of that will play the loser of the G2 KC matchup. But man, how you feel about teams, I feel like completely shifted for some of the major players, especially when the LPL, when we were just talking about doing B MVP, how far can they go? And then in a single weekend, they're eliminated in a pair of back-to-back best of fives, despite being on that winner's side. Same things happened with Thunder Talk. Things kind of evened out a little bit with teams like BLG and Top Esports running their way through the gauntlet. Hanwha Life and Team Liquid representing their regions now at the first stand. I think TL going through was a little surprising. I feel like most people had them as the fourth team on that ladder of LTA teams. Hanwha Life was obviously not a surprise whatsoever and should be favorites for that overall tournament, but probably the craziest and busiest weekend that we will have in Split 1. But that is it today for League Unlocked. My name is Eric. Thank you to all you beauties for supporting us as always, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.